So we just finished Shavuot. So as a preparation for Shavuot, we do Pirkei Avot. Everybody knows. And afterwards, all the way to the winter, we do Pirkei Avot. So we're going to continue with our Pirkei Avot topics. This is from Mishnah 19. Shmuel HaKatan Omer. Shmuel HaKatan says, Binfol oivecha, when your enemy falls, al tismach, don't get happy, don't rejoice. O bikashlo al yegel libcha, and when your enemy stumbles, you shouldn't celebrate. Why? Pen yir'eh Hashem, lest God would see, ve'ra be'einav, it's going to be bad in his eyes, ve'eshiv me'alav apo, and he will turn the evil from upon him, from upon the man. Now, if you read Tehillim, so in the books of Mishlei, this is a quote from the books of Proverbs, from the book of Proverbs. A book from the book itself. In other words, who says this?
Shmuel HaKatan. No.
If it's from the book of Proverbs, who says it? King Solomon, right? So King Solomon quotes it. And over here we says, Shmuel HaKatan Omer. What do you mean Shmuel HaKatan Omer? It's not Shmuel HaKatan who says, it's King Solomon says. If you quote somebody, you should quote who says it, not Shmuel HaKatan. Shmuel HaKatan Omer. And by the way, if you check the words, it's word by word. It's not like he changed something. If he changed a letter, you can say, no, he's not saying the same thing as King Solomon. He's saying something else. But no, he's saying exactly the same thing as in Proverbs. He's quoting Proverbs. And the fact that the Gemara says, Shmuel HaKatan says, needs to be addressed. Why did it say Shmuel HaKatan says? And let's continue to understand who this Shmuel HaKatan is. So, בנוגע לעצם השם, שמואל הקטן, when it comes to the name, Shmuel the small one, כתוב בתלמוד ירושלמי. תלמוד ירושלמי teaches us, שקראו לו כך משום שהוא מקטין את עצמו. They called him שמואל הקטן, because he used to make himself small. You know, you have a lot of Shmuels in the world. So sometimes you say Shmuel the tall one, Shmuel the fat one, Shmuel with the black beard, Shmuel that lives in the corner. A lot of names. So he was known Shmuel HaKatan. Why Shmuel HaKatan? Because he used to humble himself. What does it mean? So let's look in Masechet Sanhedrin about a case about Shmuel HaKatan. מעשה ברבן גמליאל שאמר לחכמים. It was a case with Rabban Gamliel that he said to the sages, השכימו לי שבעה לעלייה. I want 7 sages to come to my attic tomorrow. Why? Why does he need 7 sages? כדי לעבר את השנה. We're going to take a vote. At that time, there was no calendar. They had a vote. They were going to the moon. And sometimes you would make a leap year. You would add another Adar. Sometimes you would not add another Adar. And it depends on many things. We're not going to get in all the things right now. So the sages would decide according to the things if we're going to make this year a leap year or we're not going to make it a leap year. Some years you can have a play in some years. Okay. So he told the people in the Beis HaMidrash, we need 7 of you. And everybody knows which 7. The top 7. We need the top 7 up there. השכימו מצא 8. Now he gets up there and he finds 8 people. He told only 7 people to come. Now there's 8 people. אמר, מי הוא שעלה שלא ברשות ירד? He says, somebody over here didn't get permission to be here. Go out. עמד שמואל הקטן ואמר, so שמואל הקטן stood up and said, אני הוא שעליתי שלא ברשות. I am the one who came up here without permission. ולא לעבר את השנה עליתי, but forgive me. I didn't come to say the law, to take a vote on the law. That's not why I came. אלא ללמוד הלכה למעשה הוצרכתי. I came just to learn how you guys do the show. I'm just here as a spectator, not as a judge. that's what he said. Okay? Let's look at page number 2. So Rabban Gamliel said to him, to Shmuel HaKatan, Rabban Gamliel obviously told Shmuel HaKatan to be there. He's the one of the 7. He knows that he's one of the 7. So Amar lo, so Rabban Gamliel tells him, Shev b'ni shev. He says, it's okay, sit. ראויות כל השנים כולם להתעבר על ידיך. It will be worthy for the entire years to be declared a leap year because of you. ולא היה זה שמואל הקטן, and it wasn't שמואל הקטן who was the extra one obviously, אלא אדם אחר, it was somebody else. ושמואל עשה זאת כדי שלא יבויש אותו אדם ברבים. So Shmuel did this, so that person is not going to get embarrassed. He says, this person is going to get embarrassed, so it's not nice, so I'll take it upon me. כמו מעשה זה. So we're going to learn another case that was similar to this. היה יושב רבי ודורש. Rabbi used to sit in the בית המדרש and gives a lecture. וריח ריח שום. Somebody came and he ate a lot of garlic and he stank the whole place out. And it was known that Rabbi was very sensitive to garlic. It was known. He couldn't take it. He was very Easternist. He couldn't take the smell. And there was a smell of garlic in the room. Amar, so he says, Mi she'achal shum yetzeh. So Rabbi said, look, whoever ate garlic over here, get out. I can't give a speech this way. Amad Rabbi Chia v'yatza. So Rabbi Chia stood up and he left. Amdu kulam mipnei kvudo shel Rabbi Chia. Now everybody says Rabbi Chia is leaving. We're all leaving. So everybody, Rabbi Chia is such a great sage, he's leaving. So everybody stood up and everybody left. B'shachar metza'o Rabbi Shimon ben Rabbi leRabbi Chia. In the morning, the Shimon, the son of Rabbi, finds Rabbi Chia. Amar lo, אתה הוא שציירת לאבא? He says, I heard the rumor that you caused my father great pain yesterday during the lecture. כשבאת לאחר אכילת שום לבית המדרש, that after you ate garlic, you come to the בית המדרש. אמר לו, לא תקז בישראל. He says, I would never do such an act. There's no such thing. ודאי שלא אני עשיתי זאת. It says, for sure, you know that I wouldn't do such a thing. אלא קיבלתי על עצמי אשמתו של אחר. But I accepted upon myself the blame from somebody else. כדי שלא יבויש אותו אדם. So that person is not going to get embarrassed. ורבי חייא, and Rabbi Chia from such a behavior, where did Rabbi Chia learn this behavior? למד זאת מרבי מאיר. Now, Rabbi Meir we're going to see is the... No, he learned from Rabbi Meir, and we're going to see that Rabbi Meir is the most severe. The case was an awful case. We're going to see. שכן שנינו. There's a case with Rabbi Meir. What was the case? The case was like this. מעשה באישה אחת שבאת לבית מדרשו של רבי מאיר. There was a case with one woman who come to the yeshiva of Rabbi Meir. She enters the yeshiva, אמרה לו, and she says to Rabbi Meir, Rabbi, אחד מכם קידישני בבבייה. One of you made me his wife through relationships. Now there are 3 types, there's 3 ways to marry a woman. בכסף, you pay. בשטר, with a document, you write a document, or with relationships. The rabbis said no relationships. Relationship is not the way that Jewish people get married, and they took it away. But from the Torah, she is an Eshet Ish. She's become an Eshet Ish. So she didn't want to embarrass the guy. She didn't want to embarrass the guy who had relationship with her. So she came, one of you did this. Yeah? Her story was, I know he was a sage from this yeshiva, I don't know who. It was night. She played small head. I don't know who. One of you guys, but I know it was one of you guys. That's what she came. עמד רבי מאיר וכתב לה גט כריתות ונתן לה. Rabbi Meir says, I'll give you a get. I did it. It's with me. I acted like this. You know, he gave her a get. He says, here's a get, and he gave it to her.
It's not good, this get.
Why not?
Because it wasn't home, him.
Oh, very good. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. So you see that it does work. Soon why? Amdu vekatvu kulam. Once he did it, what happened? All the other sages understood. The guy's going to be embarrassed. So what did I? So everybody wrote a get. And he is.
Must be the guy.
That's right. So
She knows and he knows.
that's right. You don't have to make it a known, a whole known. So everybody in the Beit HaMidrash stood up and gave her a get. ונתנו לה. וממילא אותו תלמיד שעשה את המעשה, and by the way, that student who did this act, גם נתן לה גיטה. He also had to give her, he's not going to take it, he also gave her the get. והרי איפה מותר לנסה. So now she was allowed to get married again. So everything was good. ורבי מאיר, and Rabbi Meir, from where did he learn? This Rabbi Meir, where did he learn how to act this way? למד זאת משמואל הקטן. He learned it from שמואל הקטן. כמו כן, הגמרא מספרת בתלמוד ירושלמי על שני בנות קול שהיו בקשר לשמואל הקטן. So Shmuel HaKatan, we can see, is a special guy. And there's another story about Shmuel HaKatan we're going to see. To see what is this Shmuel HaKatan that instead of Shlomo, we say King. Shmuel HaKatan used to say. Say Shmuel. Shlomo used to say. So we see another case. This is from the Talmud Yerushalmi on page number 3. מעשה שנכנסו זקנים לעליית בית גדיה ביריחו. There was a case, again, that the elders assembled into an attic of the house of Gadia in Yericho. ויצאה בת קול ואמרה להם. There was a heavenly voice that came out, and that heavenly voice said, יש בניכם שניים ראויים לרוח הקודש. Amongst you there are two that the divine presence should settle upon you. In other words, you're in the level of prophets. That's what it says. Two of you have reached the level of prophets. והילל הזקן אחד מהם. הלל הזקן is one of them. And then the voice didn't say who was the second. ונתנו עיניהם בשמואל הקטן. But everybody knew who's the second. You don't have to. Hillel you had to say. Shmuel, they didn't even have to say. It was Shmuel was not. That's a given. Shmuel, okay, Hillel is one, the other guy is Shmuel. ושוב נכנסים לעלייה ביבנה. And there was another case. They went in another attic in Yavne. ויצאה בת קול ואמרה להם. Another heavenly voice came out. יש בניכם שניים ראויים לרוח הקודש. Two of you merit to have divine presence. ושמואל הקטן אחד מהם. Shmuel, the small one, is one of them. ונתנו עיניהם ברבי אליעזר בן הורקנוס. And everybody knew who's the other one? רבי אליעזר בן הורקנוס. He's the other one. והיו שמחים. Then they were happy. Why were they happy the second time it happened? Because the first time we suspected, and we suspected correctly. שהסכימה דעתם לדעת המקום. In other words, that now they realized it wasn't a mistake when we thought it was Shmuel HaKatan. It was good now God said it also himself. Okay. We are on page 4. The question though is still going to be our question. שואלים המפרשים. The commentaries ask, מה מחדש שמואל הקטן? What does Shmuel HaKatan say new? If it was said in the Proverbs, we already know it from the Proverbs. הרי רק חוזר על מה שכתוב במשלי. All he does is he repeats King Solomon. That's the only thing he does. He doesn't add anything. At least if you add something, explain, do something. He doesn't. He says exactly the same. Shmuel HaKatan Omer. It's not Shmuel HaKatan says. It's King Solomon said. What do you mean? So again, let's look at the source of what he says. And we're going to try to figure out if there's a difference between the two or not. So it says like this. The source itself says, בנפול אויביך אל תשמח. When your enemy falls, do not rejoice. ובכשלו אל יגע לבך. And when he stumbles, do not be happy. פן יראה השם, lest God will see. ורע בעיניו, it will be not good in his eyes. והשיב מעליו אפו. And he will turn his wrath from him. From the person. He's not going to punish the person anymore. Now, the simple explanation that most commentaries explain this verse is, for example, when the Egyptians were drowning in the sea, the angels wanted to sing. And God told the angels, you're not allowed to sing. When their creatures, when my creatures, God tells them, are drowning and you're singing, that's not nice. But what did the Jews do? The Jews sang. Miriam sang, Moshe sang, everybody sang. And not only they sang, there's something else. We sing it every day. Every day in davening, we sing it. So is that what the verse is talking about? Obviously, we don't understand the verse. We thought that the verse goes on such kind of occurrences. For example, when the Egyptians, when Hamas, when Hitler, a couple of weeks ago, this Iranian guy fell on the helicopter. What was everybody saying? Thank God. Very good. Happy. So that's what I thought. If you read the verse, you think, don't say God. Don't say good, because God is not going to punish the Iranian. You want him to punish them all the way. That's the way we would understand it without the explanation. But let's see if that's what it means. So let's continue. What?
What Shmoel is doing is different. He's preventing embarrassment. This is saying don't rejoice when somebody. But he's preventing.
Yeah, all the other stories that we got until now is just to tell us about the character of Shmuel. It's not about this verse itself. Okay, so let's see. Page number 4 on the bottom. מתרץ רבנו עובדיה מברטנורה, רבנו עובדיה מברטנורה explains, שאפילו שהפסוק אכן כתוב במשלי, he says, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking the verse is already written in Mishlei, and you're thinking it doesn't need to be repeated again by שמואל הקטן. אך שמואל הקטן, but he says, שמואל הקטן, היה רגיל להוכיח בני אדם במידה זו. There's a difference between King Solomon and Shmuel. It says, what's the difference? King Solomon was known for thousands of things. It wasn't his only saying. He had millions of saying. Shmuel HaKatan, that was his life. When you saw him, you saw this message. What was the message? Make yourself small. King Solomon, when you saw King Solomon, you didn't get the message of make yourself small. You got the message, wisdom, you got other messages. But King Shmuel HaKatan, that was the message, as we're going to see soon. אך עדיין צריך להבין, but we still need to understand. We explained it on many occasions, but פרקי אבות, ethics of the fathers, זה מילי דחסידותא. This is words of Hasidim, words that go beyond the letter of the law. מה דברי חסידות בכך ששמואל הקטן חוזר ואומר את הדברים שכתובים כבר במשלי? It says, why do we need Shmuel HaKatan to repeat something that's already we learned in Mishlei, and what's beyond the letter of the law there is over here? That's what we need to understand. So let's continue on page number 5. גם צריך להבין, we're also going to need to understand the next Mishnah that comes after this Mishnah, because they're going to be related. מהו הקשר בין משנה זו למשנה הבאה שאומרת, there's a Mishnah afterwards that says, let's read the Mishnah from the beginning, Mishnah 20. Elisha ben Avuya אומר, Elisha ben Avuya says, this is the next Mishnah, and there's a connection to this Mishnah, and we need to figure it out. Why are they together? הלומד ילד למה הוא דומה? It says, one who learns Torah in his childhood, when he's young, what is he similar to? לדיוק כתובה על נייר חדש. It is like a new parchment written with ink. והלומד זקן למה הוא דומה? And if you teach an old person, what is that similar to? לדיוק כתובה על נייר מחוק. It's like writing on a parchment where the parchment has been erased already 20 times and you're trying to write on it. Obviously, you can see the things you learned in your youth you remember forever. It's part of you. Things that you learn in your old age, you tend to forget, you tend to this. You mix it up with something else you learn. It's not the same. It's not the same. Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda ish Kfar Bavli Omer, and Rabbi Yossi bar Yehuda, a man of Kfar Bavli, he says, Halomed min aktanim lema hu domeh. If you learn from the small ones, what is it similar to? When we're talking about small ones, we don't necessarily mean in age. We need small in depth, in wisdom. Yeah? People who smart, but small. They don't have, in other words, unexperienced. Let's call it this. The guy can be a genius, but unexperienced. What is it similar? Le'ochel anavim kehot. It is like he's eating the grapes before they're ripe. Ve'shote yain megito. And drinking wine before it becomes alcohol. You're playing games. You're not learning anything. You think you're learning. If you're learning from a sage, he can be a genius, but he doesn't have the experience. He might be, you're not really learning. You think you're learning. You're not learning. But if you learn from the guys with experience, from the old people, what do you learn? What is it similar to? Le'ochel anavim beshelot. It's like eating good grapes, ripe grapes. Ve'shotei yain yashan. And drinking old wine. Meshubach. The good stuff. And again, something else we're going to learn. Rabbi Omer, al tistalkel bakankan. Since in the Mishnah beforehand, you will try to assume that if you're an 18-year-old, you don't have an experience, and if you're 80-year-old, you do have experience. So Rabbi says, don't make that mistake. So Rabbi Omer, al tistakel bakankan. Don't look at the vessel that the guy is only 18 years old. It's possible that he's only ela ma sheyesh bo. Look at what's inside. What's the knowledge inside the 18-year-old? It's possible, yesh kankan chadash, there's possible to have a guy who's only 18 years old, is a new vessel, malei yashan, but the wisdom in it is old wisdom. He's got good wine in there. Ve'yashan, and there's an old kankan, in other words, a sage with long white beard, and he gives speeches and everything else. She'afilu chadash en bo. All the speeches are nothing. His imagination, nothing of them is true. He gives great speeches, none of them are true. So it says you have to know. So this is the next Mishnah. Bartanura explain, al niyar chadash, on a new parchment, shu mitkayem. It lasts forever. Things you learn in your youth are going to last forever. Like songs when you were 16 years old, you probably know the songs, remember them. The new songs, you don't remember any songs. כך גרסת הילדות אינה משתכחת. What you learn in your youth, you never forget. ענבים כהות, grapes that are not ripe, שלא נתבשלו כל צרכן, they're not ripe, ומכות את השיניים, and they make the entire, the word, I don't know how to say it in English, but it goes, when you eat it makes you go like this. This is makot et hashinayim. It gives you shivers. כך חוכמת הילד לא נתיישבה כל צרכה. So it is by people when they're young. They don't have the wisdom that's set by them. ואין דברים מתקבלים ומתיישבים על הלב. So when a small kid gives you a speech, it might be true, but it doesn't enter your heart. It needs to have, the speech comes with experience. It's something else. It's a whole different ball game. יין מגיתו, a good wine, ששמריו מעורבים בתוריו, כך מת הילד, תערובת ספקות יש בה. It says, יין מגיתו, גיתו means that it's still in the process of becoming alcohol. You have wine, but you have bad stuff mixed inside of it. It's not ready yet. It's not like it's not there. Maybe you can find the wisdom, but it's mixed with a lot of doubts, a lot of this. He doesn't address all the questions. You're going to be there. Rabbi Meir אומר, אל תסתכל בקנקן. Rabbi Meir says, do not look at the vessel. רבי פליגה דרבי יוסי ברבי יהודה, ואמר כי כמו שיש קנקן חדש מלא יין ישן, כך ילד שטעמו כטעם זקנים. He says, don't confuse yourself that it's possible that you have a child without experience, but the wisdom that he has is good wisdom, even though he doesn't have the experience. ויש זקנים פחותים מעט החוכמה מן הילדים, and then there are some sages so called, he's been a rabbi for 80 years and he still talks nonsense, he doesn't understand anything. So don't confuse the two. Okay. So we said before about the enemy. We assumed that the enemy was someone like the Egyptians, someone like Hitler, Yimach Shemo, someone like Hamas, Yimach Shemam.
Could be happy.
Yeah.
If you die, no.
Yeah. And we see that we are happy. And we are happy every day when the Egyptians die. We repeat it every day. So what are we talking about? So let's read. Let's try to understand what's going over here. Habi'uhu. So the explanation for this. במחזור ויטרי מוסבר, in מחזור ויטרי it explains, שהפסוק מדבר על מלחמה בעסקי העולם. The verse is talking about war in matters of the world, in worldly matters. ושמואל הקטן מחדש. In other words, when Shlomo, King Solomon said it, King Solomon was referring to Hitler. King Solomon was referring to Egypt. King Solomon was referring to all the other people. That's what King Solomon was referring to. Shmuel HaKatan wasn't referring to that. He was referring to something else. Let's see. שגם במלחמתה של תורה בין שני תלמידי חכמים, כי שמואל הקטן is talking about two sages who are sitting down and now are at war. Why are they at war? They have two different opinions. This is the war. Yeah, one says this way, one says that way. They have two different opinions. שנתרוצצו עם זה זה בדבר הלכה. It says, excuse me, this is what the law should be. And the other one says, no, I don't understand it this way. This is what the law should be. And now they're arguing. ואחד מהם ניצח, and then one of them won. By the way, how do we know when one of them won? We take a vote. And we see which is the majority. So after one of them won, alav ladat, the person that won, he has to know something very interesting. We need to figure what's going on over here. שבנפול אויבך אל תשמח. Says your enemy didn't succeed. Don't be happy. כתפילת, עכשיו, what do you mean my enemy don't succeed? I'm happy that I won. What do you mean? I had an argument with the guy. He almost made a mistake and he took the entire nation the wrong way. Now we are already established. The halacha is like me. I should be happy. Why shouldn't I be happy that it's not like him? So it says, don't be happy. And he says, look at tfilat Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakane. Look at the davening of Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakane. Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakane, before he went to daven every day, he had a special prayer he used to say. Not to daven. Before he went to Beit HaMidrash to learn every day, he had a special prayer he had to say. It says, ולא ייכשלו חברי בדבר הלכה. He made, the prayer was that my friends are not going to stumble when it comes to Jewish law. ואשמח בהם. And I will rejoice in them. In other words, what does it mean? לא ייכשלו חברי בדבר, and I will rejoice in them. Rejoice in what? You don't believe what the guy says. You're in the opposite view. It's Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel over here. So why should you be rejoicing them? So let's continue. In the Mishnah it says like this. רבי נחוניה בן הקנה היה מתפלל בכניסתו לבית המדרש. Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana used to make a davening before he used to come to the house of study. וביציאתו, he also used to make a small prayer when he used to leave. תפילה קצרה. אמרו לו, מה מקום לתפילה הזו? He says, what are you davening? It's time to learn, not time to daven right now. Why are you davening? אמר להם, בכניסתי אני מתפלל. It says, when I come to this house of learning, I daven, שלא יארע דבר תקלה על ידי. I daven that no mishap, nothing wrong will be caused because I studied Torah the wrong way. Maybe I studied Torah something wrong. Torah is complicated. And because I understood not the right thing over here, that's it. I took the whole thing. So I daven that this will never happen. וביציאתי, and when I come out of the Beit HaMidrash, אני נותן הודעה על חלקי. I thank God that for my portion, there's a mitzvah for every person to have his part in the Torah, to understand his way of understanding in the Torah. And I understood one way. I'm thinking, God, look, God, I have a new understanding in the Torah. Nobody before me thought about it this way. This is something that I thought about. Nobody understood it exactly like me. I'm a mixture of this one and this one. The Gemara, Tanu Rabbanan, Beknisato Ma'umer. So the Gemara says, when he used to enter, exactly what are the words that he used to say? He used to say like this, Yehi ratzon milfanecha, Hashem Elokai, it says, may it be God's will, Shelo yered davar takala al yadi, that no mishap is going to come by my hand, Velo ekashel bedvar halacha, I will not say the wrong law, Veismechu bichaverai, and my friends are going to be happy, in my opinions. In other words, this is the strange way. His opinions are not their opinions. In my opinions, they're going to be happy. But my viewpoint, they're going to be happy. Velo omar al tameh tahor, velo al tahor tameh. And I'm not going to say on something which is impure that it's pure, and not on something that is pure that it's impure. Velo ikashlu chaverai bedvar halacha. And also the opposite way, that my friends are not going to stumble when it comes to Jewish law, ve'esmach b'hem, and I should rejoice in them. And this is what he used to say before. After study, what he used to say? B'yetziatahu ma'u omer, when he used to leave, what he used to say? Modeh ani lefanecha Hashem Elokai, it says, I thank in front of you, shesamta chelki miyoshvei bet hamidrash, that thank God that I am from the one who merited to come to study every day. Velo samta chelki miyoshvei karnot, I'm not one of the bums who sit out of 7-Eleven all day long. You know those guys? All day long out of Circle K, that's what they do. They talk about nonsense and they don't do nothing. Shani mashkim vehem mashkimim. I get early in the morning and they get up early in the morning. Ani mashkim divrei Torah. I get up to learn Torah. Vehem mashkim dvarim etidim, and they wake up to waste their time. Ani amel vehem amelim. I work hard and they work hard. Ani amel umekabel sachar. For my hard work I receive a reward. Vehem amelim ve'enam mekalim sachar. And they work hard, stealing from this guy, robbing this guy, or whatever they're doing, and they don't get reward in the world to come. They're not going to go to heaven. Ani ratz vehem ratzim. I run and they run. Ani ratz l'chai olam haba. I run for the world to come, for heaven. Vehem ratzim leve'er shachat. And they run to Gehenom. They run to the opposite of heaven. Okay? So the Rebbe comes and explains on page number 8. Shmuel הקטן מדבר על אויב ממלחמתה של תורה. Shmuel הקטן is not talking about an enemy, physical enemy. He's talking about the enemy, your friend is supposed to be your enemy. When is your friend you're supposed to be the enemy? שתלמיד אחד סובר באופן מסוים. It says, if you are not his enemy, you're not learning Torah. You're not learning Torah. It's called not learning Torah. Why is it not called learning Torah? Because if you have an opinion and you don't know how to argue your opinion, you're not learning. That's called learning. Having an opinion, you know why you hold what you hold, and you're strong with it. You know what you do. You know what you know why it's like this. The guy should be killed because of this and this and this and this. And the other guy says, "Are you crazy? What do you mean should be killed?" God 100% doesn't want him to be killed. And imagine they're talking about your son. One is saying somebody's son should be killed, and the other one says, God forbid, you misunderstood it. It has to be a real fight. You have really to push for the point. והשני סובר באופן אחר. The other one holds another manner. ולא מדובר במקרה שרק משום שהשני אומר כך. We're not talking, say modern people, there's some people, there's a joke about a guy in yeshiva. He came to yeshiva that everybody, anything the rabbi used to say, he used to say why the rabbi is wrong. The rabbi used to say this, but the rabbi is wrong because of this, and the rabbi is wrong because of that. It doesn't matter what you're going to say. He doesn't really believe that the rabbi is wrong, but it's his nature. He just, whatever anybody says, he takes the opposite view. We're not talking about such a thing, obviously. The joke about this guy, that after 120, he went to heaven. And when he went to heaven, Hashem, before he went to heaven, Hashem asked him, so you learned in yeshiva for 80 years. I remember I heard a lot of noise from you down there. There's always arguments. So tell me something that you learned. So the guy is thinking. And he says, God, God, maybe we do it the other way. You say something and I'll tell you why you're wrong. That's the type of person we're talking. Yeah, we're not talking about that kind of person. We talk. Yeah. So we're not talking about that kind of attitude. שהשני אומר, הראשון חייב לומר אחרת. Yeah? Because לא בשופטני עסקינן ולא בראשי עסקינן. We're not talking about this kind of guys. אלא הוא אומר כך משום שזה מסקנתו. He says it because he really believes in it. לאחר שהוא התגיע בלימוד התורה. And he doesn't say his opinion after he thought about it. And he thought about it again and again and again. He listens. He doesn't start arguing. You have an argument? Give me an argument. I look at it. I'll see it. I'll come back next week. Come next back week, says, I heard your argument. I don't like it. And I don't like it because of that and that and that and that. I thought about it. What? like הלל שמאי, that's right. ומכיוון שלאחר היגיעה בלימוד התורה הוא הגיע למסקנה שההלכה היא באופן מסוים, and after a person learned for a long time, he came to the conclusion that this should be the law, הרי כשהוא רואה שהשני אומר באופן אחר, and now he sees that the other guy is saying it completely the opposite, and it can be in matters of life and death, like we said before, לדעתו הוא מגלים בפנים בתורה שלא כהלכה. He says, God, you're teaching it wrong. What are you doing? How can you teach God's Torah the wrong way? והוא לא יכול לסבול זאת. And he can't take it. וכך השני נהיה אויב שלו במלחמתה של תורה. And the other ones, whether you like it or not, he says he's going against God. What do you mean? How can we let him continue to talk like this? You can't let him continue to talk like this. See, this is one of the, just let's take an example. I'll take an example from politics because not many people learned in yeshiva, so I'll give you an example in politics. When you've got a Republican and a Democrat discussing whichever issue, if they can sit down and discuss it, it means they're thinking. They're thinking. But when one of the sides says, you guys are Nazis, you guys, okay, you can't talk to you, you can, no. And he doesn't start, he stops arguing, he stops talking logic. So that means, you didn't even think about it. You're not looking for the truth. You're looking for your side to win. You don't care about the truth. Over here we're talking about two people who really care about the truth. And even if they do really care about the truth, there's going to be a problem. Because after they both get to the truth, now the fight is a real fight. It's not as shallow as the other ones, you're not. What do you mean? If I understand that this is what God wants, and you tell me God wants else, there should be a fight. We should be enemies. Think about it. Now we're talking about this is what God wants.
Come from a deep understanding.
What are we going to do over here? So, let's understand. So, in source number 5, there's another issue that we have to bring. We're not going to go on this so long, but it says like this. כחיצים ביד גיבור, this is from the Tehillim, like arrows in the hand of a warrior, כן בני הנאורים. So are the sons of one's youth. אשרי הגבר אשר מילא את אשפתו מהם, לא יבשו כי ידברו את אויביהם בשער. Happy is the man who filled his quiver with them. He will not be ashamed. I'll summarize what it says that relates to us. It says, when you sit in yeshiva and you learn things the way you learn them good. When you were young. In other words, there's an advantage when you were young. Why there's an advantage when you were young? Because when you're older, you can never concentrate on Torah. You can't. You might have experience, but you can't concentrate on Torah. An 18-year-old, a 19-year-old, before he's married, you know what he has in mind? Nothing. He doesn't have a wife, no children. He doesn't have anything to bother him. He doesn't need money. He doesn't care about money. He doesn't need anything. He can sit down and only think about the matter. So he says, the things that you thought about the matter when you were young, it says those arrows that you put in your quiver, every conclusion that you came to, that you can keep forever. These are the things that you can keep forever. כחיצים ביד גיבור, להילחם במת אויביו. With this conclusion, with this kind of logic, nobody can, who can come? You were dedicated to the Torah. You didn't have anything. In other words, you were not a Democrat, you were not a Republican, you didn't earn money, so you didn't care about taxes yet. You neither here nor there. You don't care about political parties yet. You don't have something to push you this way or that way. Everything is what? Pure logic. In other words, this kind of understanding, now you can go on your way. These are the weapons you can use for your entire life. כן בני הנאורים, התלמידים שהאדם מדהים, this is the students that you are standing when they're still young. אשרי הגבר אשר מילא את השפעתו מאותם חיצים, השפעתי כחיצים. So it says, happy is the man who, this is the logic that he gives, that he works with this kind of logic. In other words, he doesn't come with experience. You would think that experience is good. It says experience is bad. Because it matters what you experienced. It matters what you experienced. It matters. If you experience this in your life, you're going to think one this way. A person who went through the Holocaust is not going to have the same conclusion of a person who didn't go to the Holocaust. A person who lived in Israel, who lives in Israel and he feels the things falling on him, is not going to feel the same as a guy who lives in Tucson, Arizona. It's impossible. Experience, but both of them are not logic. You understand? Both of them have a tilt. This, you can say it's a good tilt or a bad tilt, I don't care, but it's a tilt. You see, the Bacher in your youth, you didn't experience anything. There's no experience. Oh, this is pure logic. Now there's no tilt. This is the idea. Let's continue. In source number 6, תלמוד קידושין, ושואלים, מה פירוש את אויבים בשער לעניין זה? It doesn't talk about it. The last part in source number 5, כי ידברו את אויבים בשער. They spoke like they were not ashamed when they talked to the enemies at the gate. Pretty much, that's the translation. Amar Rabbi Chia. So what's that? What does that teach? So Rabbi Chia teaches us like this. Afilu ha'av vebno. Over here we're talking about when two people learn Torah, and when we say two people mean even a father and a son. When a father and a son are sitting down to learn Torah, or the rabbi and his student, Rabbi Akiva, he's got 24,000 students. Right? He's sitting with his students. You know how the students have to look at Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Akiva have to look at the students? Enemies. If your opinion is not according to the logic, you're going to be called out on it. There's no such things. Tilt, I know you're right, you're smarter, you're this smarter, you experience. Nothing matters. Either you give me the logic, that's it, we're enemies. Right now, I think different than you. שעוסקים יחד בעניין אחד, anyone who's dealing with somebody else is learning the same thing, נעשים אויבים זה את זה מתוך להט הלימוד. They have to become enemies. By the way, and you're going to say, maybe they think the same way. Maybe they can't. It's impossible. Why is it impossible? Because there's 613,000 different neshamas, and every neshama has its part in the Torah. It is impossible for a neshama to understand it exactly like another neshama. Every neshama has a different tilt. It might not be big. It might be a small one. But it is impossible that two people have the same opinion. Like it says, כשם שפניהם לא שווים, כך דעותיהם לא שווים. Just like you... What? Also, we'll have to deal with it. We'll have to deal with it. Yeah? ואולם, but... So they're enemies. But אינם זזים משם עד שנועשים אוהבים זה את זה. But they're not allowed to move from the argument until they start loving each other again. So it says, you're talking about two opinions over here. And you're talking about an opinion that sometimes means, should we kill my cousin or we shouldn't kill my cousin? These are the two opinions. Yeah? שנאמר, says, how do you know this? How do you know that they have to come in the end to love each other? There's a verse in the book of Numbers, it says, על כן יאמר בספר מלחמות השם, אתבהב בסופה. So it says, therefore it says in the book of the words of the Lord, Vahev en Sufa. It's the name of a place, Vahev en Sufa. Until a place, the words of God, until a place is called Vahev Sufa. Shamefaresh, Vahev, and then it says you have to read it differently. How do you have to read it? You have to read Vahev milashon ahava. You have to read Vahev. It's not the name of a place, but it means love. Al tikra besofa, and don't read another place. Sufa, read ela besofa, in the end. In other words, milchamot Hashem, the wars of God, have to end with love in the end. This is the way they learn the verse. So even though you're at war with the guy when you argue, you have to end the war when there's love in the end. What does it mean? בסופו של בוויכוח הם מגיעים לאהבה. In the end of the argument, you have to come to love each other. So let's see. וכפי שהגמרא דורשת על הפסוק הדבר בסופה, אפילו האב ובנו, הרב ותלמידו שעוסקים בתורה, ונעשה מביאים זה לזה, so even the father and the son, or the student and the teacher, as long as they're learning Torah, they're enemies, but in the end, they're not allowed to move from that until they become lovers again. אבל לפני כן, הם היו אויבים זה לזה. But before that, they have to become enemies. לא באופן שיחס לשני טובה, אלא מלחמה של תורה. We're talking about a war of Torah. If you really believe in what you say, the guy is wrong. Correct him. He's wrong. He's going against God. It's good. It's bad for his neshama, the way he thinks. He thinks that pig is kosher. You know what he does to his neshama? He eats pig. You have to take away the pig from him. What do you do? You're going to let him eat pig? It means you're crazy if you let him eat pig. He thinks that sleeping with somebody else's wife is okay. What do you mean it's not okay? You have to tell him. Yeah, exactly. You have to. What do you mean? How can you stand there and not be his enemy? You have to be his enemy. וזהו שהוא נהיה האויב שלו. In other words, you have to become his enemy in the argument. וזה לא בגלל שהוא פגוע. And we're not talking about you, Daniel, because he said something, I have to say the opposite, because he offended me. אלא מכיוון שאצלו מונח שזה הפך האמת. It says, what do you mean? What are you doing? You're crazy. Your opinion is craziness. וכפי שהגמרא אומרת, שתלמיד חכם שכועס, התורה היא שמרתיחה אותו. It says, if you ever see a sage that is angry, it's not that he's angry because he's offended what you did to him. He says, you're going against God. I'm angry for you. You're going to let your son jump off a cliff? He says, you're going to hold him. He says, don't jump, you idiot. That's the same over here. Don't jump. The guy's trying to jump off the cliff with his opinions. You have to stop him. Now, exactly in this time, from last week, all the time of the Sphira, that we're in mourning. So let's see. וזהו הביאור בכך שאומרים שתלמידי רבי עקיבא נענשו משום שלא נהגו כבוד זה בזה. And if you remember, during Sphira, we were in mourning because the students of Rabbi Akiva died, 24,000 students. And why did they die? כן נלחמו. They didn't come to the end of the fight. The love in the end, let's see what happens. אמרו, so source number 7, אמרו 12,000 זוגים תלמידים היו לו לרבי עקיבא. רבי עקיבא had 24,000 students. מגבת עד אנטפירס, וכולם מתו בפרק אחד. They all died within this period of the 49 days. Why? מפני שלא נהגו כבוד זה לזה. Because they didn't give honor to each other. And now the whole story is going to make much more sense. Let's see. לכאורה זה לא מובן. So first of all, the whole story is not understood. Why? הם הרי היו תלמידי רבי עקיבא. They were the students of רבי עקיבא. And what does it mean? והוא התמסר אליהם ולמד איתם תורה. And all רבי עקיבא did is gave them his Torah. והרי ישנו, and רבי עקיבא has כלל גדול בתורה. What's the כלל גדול בתורה of רבי עקיבא? ואהבת לך כמוך. The most important rule that everybody knows. רבי עקיבא said, יש כלל גדול בתורה. This was Rabbi Akiva. This is every student that saw Rabbi Akiva, that's what he learned. That's the first thing. That's what Rabbi Akiva teaches. והרי ישנו כלל גדול בתורה של ואהבת לך כמוך, שאת זה אמר רבי עקיבא בעצמו, and this is what he's teaching, and that's why he taught them. So how all these guys learned all these years from Rabbi Akiva, and this was his greatest teaching, and doing the opposite? ובאם רבי עקיבא למד עם תלמידיו את כל התורה כולה, and if Rabbi Akiva taught them the entire Torah, בוודאי שהוא למד איתם גם את הכלל גדול בתורה, ואהבת לך כמוך, for sure he learned with them, also you should love your fellow Jew. ואם כן, איך ייתכן שלא נקרא? So I don't understand the whole story. What does it mean that the students couldn't honor each other? Now you understand. They're not allowed to honor each other. If the guy says the wrong opinion, what do you mean? So let's see. והביאור בזה, in the explanation, מה שהם לא נהגו כבוד זה בזה, the fact that they give honor to one another, היה רק בנוגע לעניין מלחמתה של תורה. They didn't give honor because you're not supposed to give honor when you're at war. My opinion, if you say Rabbi Akiva said something and I know that Rabbi Akiva never said it, you know what's my responsibility to tell the people? You're teaching it wrong. You didn't understand Rabbi Akiva and you explain Rabbi Akiva wrong, you're misleading the entire Jewish nation. And that's what they did. There are 24,000 people.
The guy will tell, no, I understood Rabbi
Oh,
Akiva.
very good. And since there's 24,000 students, there's 24,000 opinions. So none of them, because they were at war, it says, you are saying the wrong teachings of Rabbi Akiva. They understood it a little bit, like I said, each one according to Shorish Nishmato, each one a little bit different. שמכיוון שהוויכוח הוא בצורה של מלחמה, since the arguments, when you do the arguments has to be at a time of war, לכן ייתכן שהוא יידרדר להנהגה באופן לא כל כך. So it came to they didn't end the conversation with what Rabbi Shmuel HaKatan says. We're going to go back to Rabbi Shmuel HaKatan soon. Okay? And it came out that even in the end of the argument, after it continued, after it was finished, after the vote was taken, they were still fighting. That's what happened with them. So let's continue. ועל זה אומרת המשנה. And this is what Rabbi Shmuel HaKatan comes in the end and says. It says, whenever you're going to have an argument, even an important argument about Torah, whether you like it or not, you are going to like it. You know, I'll tell you about myself. It doesn't matter who it was or what it was, but sometimes when somebody wins in politics, you're not so happy that your side won. You know what you're happy? That the other guy is lost. Sometimes the joy comes, oh, now they're suffering. Good for them. Now they see what it is like. Both sides. And whether you like it or not, we all have these feelings. And this is what Rabbi Shmuel HaKatan says. It says, if you have this feeling, you're not fighting for the right reason. That's it. You went somewhere wrong, start working on yourself. This is what it says. And let's not fool ourselves. We are going to have these feelings, and when we have these feelings, we're going to have to start working on ourselves. So let's see. ולכן, אז זה אומרת המשנה, בנפול אויביך אל תשמח. On this, the Mishnah says, when your enemy falls, don't be happy. What does it mean? בשעה שמתברר שההלכה היא כפי דעתך. In other words, you took a vote, and the majority of the vote was like yours. It means that I'm right, and he is wrong. So if you're happy about the fact that right now we know what to do, until now we were in doubt, we didn't know what the right thing to do. Now we know what the right thing to do, that's one thing. But don't be happy because he lost. Don't be happy because he lost. Happy because obviously that's what God says. God says go according to the majority. We went according to the majority. We do God's way. That's one thing. But don't be... אתה אומנם צריך להיות שמח מכך שהתברר האמת. You have to be happy that now there's no more doubt. You know what the right thing to do. משום שאין לך שמחה יותר מהתרת ספקות. Because when you have no doubt, that's when real happiness comes. And you see it by yourself. When you have a doubt, if you can do in your business this way or that way, Yeah, you can sleep at nights for days, but once you make a decision, that night you went to sleep. Until that night, now you can go to sleep like a baby, and because it brings simcha. Ubeim lo tismach, and if you're not going to be happy, it says, and you have to be happy. Why do you have to be happy? But you have to be happy, because if you're not happy, it means you didn't care. And when it comes to Torah, you have to care. What do you mean? This is God's will. Of course you have to care. And you're happy. Mazira Mishnah, but the Mishnah tells you what kind of happiness do you have. שבנפול אויביך אל תשמח. When your enemy falls, don't be happy. זאת אומרת, which means שהשמחה לא תהיה מכך שהאויב שלך נפל. You shouldn't be happy from the fact that their side lost and we won. אלא רק משום שהתבררה ההלכה והאמת התבטלה והסברה מוטעית. It says, be happy that right now everybody knows what the right thing is. אך אם השמחה אצלך היא מכך שבנפול אויביך, but if you're happy, why? Because your enemy is suffering, because your enemy fell, צריך אם כן לברר באם יש לך בכלל שמחה. The truth is, are you really happy for God? No, you're happy that you won. You couldn't care less about God. You don't care about God, and you shouldn't be a judge at all. You shouldn't be one who takes the vote. Because people who take the vote, who say, if the halacha should be this way and should be this way, should be without pniyot. They should be without agendas. They should be without that. And if you're happy that the other guy lost, it means you have an agenda. And if you have an agenda, don't be a judge. Get out of here. Don't be biased. Mishum sheitberera halacha. In other words, the only reason you should be happy is we know what God wants now. Or שכל השמחה היא משום שדידה נוצח. And over here, the guy is happy. No, because our side won. That's what we're happy. That's not why we're happy. We're happy because right now we know the direction that we need to go. וזהו תביעה של מילי דחסידותא. And over here, we're talking about going beyond the letter of the law. Because the letter of the law, not necessarily you need to get to such a high level. He says, if you're happy that the enemy lost, the other opinion lost, it's not the end of the world. But מילי דחסידותא means to go beyond the letter of the law. משום שקשה לדייק שהשמחה תהיה רק מצד שההלכה התבררה. Imagine that tomorrow there's Trump or Biden, whichever side we're on to, it doesn't matter, and the one side won. Tell me, is there one guy in America who's his side won not going to be happy that the other guy lost? Impossible. Impossible. Everybody's going to be happy that the other lost. If you're really a Trump supporter, if you're not a Trump supporter, not a Biden supporter, then you're not happy. But if you're really a Trump supporter, you believe in that system, or you're really a Biden supporter, you believe in that system, really believe, and you fight for it, and you do everything for it, and when the other side lost and you're not happy, how can you not be? It's impossible. Over here it tells you, if you are happy, something is wrong. You don't care about America. You really don't care about America. Whether you're a Trumpist, whether you're a Biden, you really don't care about America. You care about your system. Yeah? You care about winning. Once America has a direction, now you should be happy, whatever direction is. Or you care about being right. That's right.
People would rather die than be wrong.
That's right. והתבטלה הדת שאינה נכונה, ולא לקשר זאת עם האדם עצמו. Not to make it a Biden-Trump thing. משום שלא ניתנה תורה למלאכי השרת. Because the Torah was not given to angels. So angels don't care this way. They don't have physicality. They don't care Biden or Trump, I can see. But we, because we're humans, we become attached to the person. We become attached to the movement. We become attached to the idea. Torah or politics, the same thing. אך במילי דחסידותא תובע שמואל הקטן שאדם צריך לפעול בעצמו עניין זה. But שמואל הקטן says, don't run into it. Don't fall into that. אך כך המשנה ממשיכה. And then there's the final thing. The Mishnah continues and says, look what it says. You know what's going to happen if you're happy that the other guys failed? This is what's going to happen. We're talking about Torah over here, yeah? Penirei Hashem. Hashem is going to see that you're happy. That, in other words, you're happy for the wrong reason, not for the right reason. Ve'ra be'einav, it's going to be bad in his eyes that you're happy that the other guy lost. Ve'heshiv alav apo, and the anger that he's going to have on that person is going to put on you. What does that mean? Why is Hashem angry on the losing opinion? Why should he be? What does it mean? Who says that Hashem is angry on the losing opinion? So let's try to go even deeper. והביאור בזה. And the explanation for this. When you have an argument with another person, this is when it comes to Torah. It is an amazing concept. שלתלמיד השני יש ראש ישר, and you know it, we're talking about two stages over here of an argument. We're talking about Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Akiva and Rabban Gamliel. We're talking about not guys like us, yeah? Two giants having an argument, and even if the other one has a straight head. What does it mean he has a straight head? You know, when you are competing with somebody, if you're an enemy with somebody, you have respect to them after the fight. Why do you have the respect? Because usually you know that if that and that would have happened in the fight, you would have lost. The only reason you won because he didn't realize all the mistakes that you made. In the next time, if you would have realized over here that you almost couldn't take it, you would have been gone. That's why you have respect. In other words, also in the arguments, you realize this guy is thinking correctly. This guy is thinking straight. He's got good arguments. והעובדה שהוא לא כיוון להלכה. So if he thinks correctly, how come the halacha is not like him? I had an argument with him. I saw his side of the argument. Beit Shammai or Beit Hillel or Rabbi Akiva and Rabban Gamliel having an argument. So how come he lost if he has such a good mind? So I'll tell you why he lost. זה רק מצד אפו של הקדוש ברוך הוא. The only reason in a true fight, in other words, he's got a better head than me. In a true fight, if it was a fight only of logic, he should have won. And I know he should have won. In other words,
Because Hashem wanted him to
because Hashem was angry at him.
was angry.
What does it mean? Let's see. אותו תלמיד קיבל עונש, that student received the punishment, שהוא לא יזכה לכוון להלכה. Yeah, he's got an argument. But to be completely without bias, yes, God put a bias into him. He's got a better mind, everything is better than you. But God put the bias into him. For example, let's take the bias. We might not have the time so much, but you remember we were talking about old vessel and new vessels? Rabbi Akiva did not learn Torah until he was 40 years old. That's a bias that God put into him. And because of that bias, you know what happened to Rabbi Akiva? Halacha is never like him. When Rabbi Akiva comes in the Gemara, we learned, how many Mishnahs of Rabbi Akiva? Hundreds, right? How many times was the halacha like Rabbi Akiva? Almost never. Chachamim, Rabbi Akiva is not in the halacha. Why? There's a bias on Rabbi Akiva. He didn't learn his Torah when he was young. God gave him a bias. God put something to him. He learned when he was 40 years old. He started learning. There was bias against him. And we're going to learn something. It says, and if you're happy, if these guys are happy, that after the argument with Rabbi Akiva, they are right, and they're happy that Rabbi Akiva, who are you? You're wrong. Like, nobody said it, but you understand the idea. It says, don't be happy when God doesn't take the bias of Rabbi Akiva. Don't be happy. משום שאדרבה, צריך לרחם עליו, שהוא לא זכה לכוון להלכה. It says, poor Rabbi Akiva, he's got the best mind of all of us. You know who had the best mind? This guy had the best mind. God didn't give him the halacha, he put a bias on him. He made him live such a life that he cannot see the true reality without the bias. He made him a glitch. He lived through the Holocaust. You expect a guy that was by the Hamas, for 6 months now. You expect him to come out of the Hamas with the same attitude of a guy who lives in Brooklyn? He sees the world differently. He's not going to see the world. Whether he likes it or not, he can't. You cannot. It's not the same life. A guy who fought in Gaza is not the same guy who didn't fight in Gaza. It's not. You're biased if you like it or not. ואומרים הלשון פן, it says don't rejoice, זאת אומרת שאי אפשר לדעת ברור מדוע לא כיוון להלכה. It says you can't know for sure even though he has such a great mind, why he didn't come to the right halacha? Why the halacha is not like him? יכול להיות שיש לו אכן ראש עקום. It's possible that he's got crooked mind. That's possible. יכול להיות שזהו משום שהוא לא אכל באותו יום בשר שור. It's possible because at that day he didn't eat enough in the morning. או סיבות אחרות, or many other reasons. אך יכול להיות שזהו אכן עונש מהקדוש ברוך הוא. It also can be that, you know what? Even with that he should have beaten us. The fact that he didn't beat us, you know why? It's God punished him. ועל זה אומרים, פן יראה השם ורע בעיניו. And on this, Rabbi Shmoel הקטן says, God is going to see that you're happy, that he's biased, and it's going to be happy in your eyes. says, והשיב מעליו אפו, באם אתה תשמח בנבול אויביך, Rabbi Shmoel הקטן says, if you're going to be happy, יכול להיות שהקדוש ברוך הוא יוריד את אפו מהתלמוד השני, ויעביר אותו אליך. God is going to change the bias. You thought that the bias is that he's old. Rabbi Akiva is thinking like an old kankan. That's his bias. He's going to make the bias that you're thinking like a new kankan. Let's see how you deal with it now from next time. And then the halacha is never going to be like you because you're thinking biasly. וזהו גם כן הקשר למשנה הבאה, הלומד תורה ילד, הלומד תורה זקן. That's why there's a connection to this Mishnah teaching an old person, teaching a young person. על פי האמור לעיל, according to what we explained before, מובן שיש אופן בלימוד התורה שלפועל חסר באיכות הלימוד שלו. You can learn Torah in a manner that you're not going to come to the right conclusion, not because you did something wrong. You thought excellent. God made you live a life that you're biased. There's nothing else. You can't do nothing about it. A person who lived through a certain thing is going to be biased. That's it. He's going to be biased. There's nothing you can do. There's no משום שהוא לא מכוון לאמיתתה שלך. It says, and it's not nothing to do with intellect. The guy is not capable of thinking this way. He experienced life different than you. אך הוא לא אשם בכך. It's not his fault. You cannot tell him, you can't think straight. He is thinking straight. He's bringing something that he has. What do you want from him? כי זה הגיע מצד אפו של הקדוש ברוך הוא. It didn't come from faulty reasoning. It came from fault. He lived and experienced life differently. ועל זה ממשיכה המשנה הבאה בתור דוגמה לזה. And this is what the next Mishnah is talking. שיש את אופן הלימוד של הלומד תורת ילד. There are those who learn like children. ויש את אופן הלימוד של הלומד תורת זקן. And some people are learning the way of the old people. Everybody has a bias. You can be biased. You know, a person who went to Baal Tshuva, a person who's a Baal Tshuva, and a person who's a free from birth don't think the same way. You can't. You can't. A person who took drugs and went off drugs, and a person who never took drugs, they don't think the same. You can't. This is the same thing over here. A person who experienced Torah when he was a small child, and a person who experienced Torah when he was an old man, it's not the same. They're both, you're talking logic, you're talking, there's nothing you can do about it. You're going to have a bias.
But both perceptions contribute.
Both,
In other words,
the conception
each
only,
have a contribution to make.
the conception only hurt though.
What's that?
The conception only hurt. Both, I wouldn't say contribute. Both conceptions hurt. Because both conceptions are not pure logic.
Okay.
It's the opposite. It's not that both help. They both don't help. They both give you a bias. זאת אומרת שבילדותו הוא לא יכל ללמוד תורה. Like somebody like Rabbi Akiva. He was an ignoramus for 40 years. ולכן הוא לומד בזקנותו. That's why he was forced to learn. When he's an old man, there's nothing he can do about it. Does he have bias because of that? Yes. Should he stop learning because of that? Absolutely not. ואומנם בפועל יש חיסרון בלימוד התורה שלו, and it's true that, so he's biased, it's true. He never learned when he was young. What can he do? משום שהוא לומד בתור זקן ולא בתור ילד, אך זוהי לא אשמתו. Why are you blaming Rabbi Akiva? The poor Rabbi Akiva, the halacha is never like him. Why is the halacha never like him? Because he was an old man when he started learning Torah. Nothing he can do about it. Does he think wrong? Is his arguments wrong? His arguments are pure logic. His arguments are beautiful. He has a bias towards this kind of thinking. There's nothing he can do about it.
Should learn Torah from artificial intelligence? I
That's right. Without any bias. Without any bias. Very good.
But Rish Lakish יש לו גם...
Everybody has a bias. Rish Lakish has a bias. He has an advantage. Yeah. Everybody has an advantage and a disadvantage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
That's right. This is part of how...
Yeah.
One guy was born rich, one is tzaddik, one is...
The problem is that Rav Shmuel says that if you're happy about the other guy not coming to halacha, it means you didn't learn the right way. In other words, you learned from your bias, and that's why you're happy that he failed. Otherwise, you would have understood. You know why Rabbi Akiva is got a bias, and why does he have a bias? God put it there. I don't know why. I don't know why God didn't let Rabbi Akiva learn when he was a young kid. If he would have learned when he was the king, he would have been thinking differently. And we wouldn't have Rabbi Akiva.